Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. I know this is probably got everybody's anxiety level up. It's like, why do we have to come to this thing in February to talk about what our kids are going to take in the future here? But I think we're all pretty excited about how do we create an atmosphere in which kids can get, first of all, desire certain classes, and then get the classes that they desire. And again, this is no fault of anything in the past. It's just the way that we've done things for a long time. This is actually my 21st year in administration, and I bet you I bet you 15 or 16 of those years, I felt like a winning schedule was when I could take 60 kids and divide them equally by 20 and make sure that everybody had the same. And also, it kept our class sizes exactly the same. Kids didn't have to think. Everybody would look at it and they go, oh, wow, in 9th grade I'm going to take this. In 10th grade I'm going to take that. In 11th grade I was going to take that. And then in 12th grade we might get to choose which social studies class we want. You know, of course, band and choir and world language. So that's where this whole thing started. Many of you took the same schedule I did. And I felt I was winning by doing something very similar to what I had in high school, and I just tried to get better at perfecting that system. And it took me a very, very long time to figure out the system itself was actually limiting our ability to choose. The system itself was limiting our ability to have kids show interest. We were telling them what to do. We almost required them to do most everything. In fact, when we had a good idea, if it was really good, something like, I'll just say Algebra 2, we really think everybody should have Algebra 2 to the point where the state of Minnesota ultimately required everybody to have Algebra 2. When they heard of schools that were doing Algebra 1 in 8th grade, eventually the state of Minnesota said, that's such a great idea, let's have everybody do that. So what that ultimately led is more requirements and less flexibility. We've been sitting in a system that looks a lot alike for a very, very long time. And what it is, the sum effect of this is that you don't have much choice. And when I look at a 9th grade kid and I say, you should really show interest, it's really hard to do that when every kid's schedule looks almost exactly alike. It's great for us. It's not for the differences the kids show. One last aspect of that, and again, this is since I've been here for 8 months or so, where our discussions have been, the last part of that is that what does this class today that I'm getting a certain grade in, what does this have to do with my future? And I'm a math teacher, so again, I will incriminate myself. I was good in math, and I like math. I still like doing math problems. If you gave me a set of 25 questions, I would actually enjoy going through it. But when I start looking at math, the only kids that I'm actually teaching at the level that I was is maybe 2 or 3 kids at the top of the list. The other 27 kids in that same class that I had did not like math the way that I did. So in addition to starting to be flexible, it's to look at everything we do and say, how can we get a better outcome and more interest from students by opening some things up? And you all know it because you've all been through the same schooling that I have. And we can point to this class or that class and say, I'm not so sure that I learned anything in that class. Now that's not the fault of the teacher. That's the reality that every individual is not the same. And at what point, when you look at the fact that we do pretty much the same thing, not just in kindergarten through 8th grade, but when we repeat that in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, that's very challenging. Finally, when you go to college, your first 2 years of college, What is probably the most common refrain we hear? I'm just going to get my generals. So the reason we do that is because those programs look a lot alike for a part of it, but at the same time, it's because nobody really knows what they want to do. And they get to college and they throw another couple something that looks largely like high school, and they still aren't doing anything in a class that's really helping them determine whether this was a great decision to go to this or that. So, if I were to be a teacher, and I was a teacher, so I look back and say, what was the thing that got me ready to be a teacher? And I look back that math class, I became a math teacher, so that certainly was an impact. I think about my relationship with my parents. My parents were teachers, that certainly helped. So there's a lot of things, but I can't point to a single class, even most of my college classes, that hardly helped me at all to become a teacher. So this idea that we are going through is trying to get these interests, getting a lot of people as part of the equation, getting parents, students to really think about those things that they do. And that's the whole thing that we're looking at. I'm going to turn over to the next level here. I want to introduce all the people that are part of this process. Mr. Gregory, Dean of Students, over here. Mr. Wing, who's come back and tried to help us out so we can figure things out. Appreciate his help. We have Miss Anderson, counselor, and I'm going to turn this over to her. And Miss Spanier was around here somewhere. She's up there handing out stuff. So that's our team that we've been having conversations for the last 6 months or so. And I'm going to let Miss Anderson take you on the next step.
So I am going to briefly speak about the start of our registration process and how we get our students interested in a specific direction. We use a system called MCIS, Minnesota Career Information System, and every one of your students has a password and a login to this system that's particular to them that will warehouse all of their career, college, interest inventories, everything like that on this management system. I'm going to talk about what the 8th and 9th graders have done thus far. And with that being said, I'm going to give a brief overview, but the nice thing about this is that your son or daughter has this username and password, and this is something that I encourage you to take a look at this with them about what they found out, and you can dig deeper into it. It's an awesome site, and it's only getting better. They've been improving it. They're taking a lot of feedback from schools. So I'm really excited for it, and I'm excited that it's personalized to each student and that every student can get excited about them because it's for them and for their future. So that when you hear MCIS, that is what we use that management system for. This year, the 8th graders so far, again, it's even interesting when we go into an 8th grade classroom, a 9th grade classroom, a 10th grade classroom, that some of these inventories we will do more than once. Because as we all know, our interests can change. Different things come out when we take these inventories. So the first one our 8th graders took were the interest profiler. And really it's just taking what the student is interested in and what careers they could possibly be matched with, that people who are in those careers, they are happy with them, and so what skills and interests match up with that. So our students, like I said, our 8th grade students took the interest profiler, so it doesn't tell you what you should be necessarily, but it categorizes you and then has different jobs that should be enjoyable under those different categories. And again, these are really interesting to look at. One thing that we did notice with a lot of our 8th graders is that they had maybe a couple interests on the top, but there was a lot of kind of zeros. And that's just where they're at with everything. And so with those students, There's another profiler that I will be using with some of those students who maybe didn't get the results that they would have liked to seen, or just so we get a little better picture for them. So that is what our 8th graders use this year. Our freshmen, they use the career cluster inventory. So this is helping them identify what their interests are again, but what career clusters that it matches up with. So this is a little easier to understand. It's more black and white with those specific careers. And then those worksheets in front of you, we will go over later of how that matches up with what we're doing here at BBE to get students on their particular pathways. So it'll all link up, but like I said, the good thing is students from now on, they will have these throughout their high school career, so they'll be able to look back, go on for future years, and we'll have all that information housed in one place. And like I said, this is something you can access from everywhere, and I definitely encourage you to take a look at this with your students and what their results were. We're now briefly going to talk about graduation requirements. We have made a few changes this year and made a few updates, and Mr. Wing is going to fill us in a little bit about our graduation requirement credit summaries. You all did, or you could have picked up a graduation requirement sheet. So there are some changes this year, but there's not a lot of changes, but we'd like to share those with you.
Good evening, everyone. And I recognize quite a few as former students. The graduation requirements really have not, as Mrs. Anderson's, changed a great deal. The graduation requirements went up from 46 to 48. But then in changing some things, you'll notice that the health and phy ed down from 3 to 2 to make graduation, and health is now going to be a part of the phy ed class, where it used to be it would be 1 day phy ed, 1 day health. And then social studies, typically that would generally be 8, and we cut that down from 8 to 7, and where the one was taken away was basically from the 9th grade. If you look at the sheet, you'll see where social studies is 7 semester credits, and by grade 9 there's only 1 elective. Up until this year, all of our 9th graders took a civics class for the full year. So that is a change, and that's one of the areas where students are going to have to look a little bit differently, because this now is an elective, and there will be different social classes that they can select and start earning electives before they get out of the 10th grade, which is typically through the 10th grade, we were pretty much telling you what you were going to take. And those of you that graduated from here, you know that. In the 10th grade, you maybe had room for 2 electives. So that is a change which gives the kids a little bit more flexibility. And then the capstone requirements. That is something new. And do we have we'll talk about those later? Okay. So if there's some questions about the graduation requirements. Okay.
All right, Mr. Walsh is going to talk to us now about, you've probably been hearing this, and I know your students have been hearing about Jagways. So what is Jagways? And he is going to help explain that.
Thank you. I'd like to have you guys recognize these folks who are, Christina's got a basketball game here in half an hour, and she's out here presenting, so I admire all the people for what they're doing to get us ready here. So we've coined a term called Jagways. We are the Jaguars, and there also is a Career Pathways, which is a national network of ideas in getting kids to focus on career and post-secondary readiness. So what that means is that you're really matching your education with your career aspirations, or vice versa. You have career aspirations, so you think, I want to be a nurse, so I might want to start taking nursing classes. Now, at the high school, that doesn't mean we're going to shift everybody. It's like, boy, I'm an 8th grader, I think I want to be a welder. We're not going to do anything but weld. The first thing I really want to emphasize is that most of our schooling is still very traditional and very fixed. The requirements are the requirements. We still have to meet all of those same requirements. So if you want to just look at this Jagways thing, take one class each semester and say change that, or at least consider one of those classes, maybe 2. By the time you're maybe a junior or senior, you might be looking at 3 of those that really look different. But the only way that I can get into physics as a senior is if I probably took chemistry and I really got all the math that I needed. So you can't take physics without doing the background stuff. So you start thinking long view of things. I can't take anatomy if I really didn't do that well in biology and I didn't take chemistry. Anatomy is not going to mean the same thing to me. Again, I go back to the teaching argument. I really can't be a great teacher if I can't get up in front of people and talk. Teaching's going to be a challenge. I might want to know that before I get a teaching degree, whether I really can even interview for a job and earn one. And trust me, I've interviewed many, many people that after the interview I said, boy, that is not a good career pathway for you, because they couldn't even really handle the interview. And ultimately, you know, you have to have some requisite skills, and you want to get feedback on that early. So what is Jagways? This is a way for students to develop their plans for career and post-secondary options. This aligns courses and ways for students to gain deep connections early. We don't wait till your senior year and say, just take all the requirements, honey, and then your senior year, you're going to have a lot of openings. You can go and take all those challenging courses that interest you. It's hard enough to keep kids interested for 13 years, or probably 9 years, than it is for us to keep them interested for 13 years. If there's something fun, video game design, the only thing I really want to do is video game design. That's all I do is play Fortnite. You know, there may be a living there, but I think you might want to find out pretty early what video game design actually looks like. Because at the end of that video game design class, I'm thinking my son here, he probably wants nothing to do with video game design and said, I can't believe I'm wasting all my time on this. I don't even like programming this stuff. So that ultimately comes out. And finally, this is a requirement from the state of Minnesota for all high school students. This is a requirement that you have a plan. So we're not doing anything that's not part of the requirements. What is different from the way we have done this in the past? We are expecting all students and staff to look at each course that you take and to reflect on whether this is something that should be good for us or not, instead of doing something where we just pre-program it and say, 9th graders, we're going to do this for you guys, and then you got to tell us whether you're in band or choir and which of the elective areas you'd like to take, FACS, ag, tech ed, or art. That's it. Again, I'm not indicting that system. I'm saying that's what happens mathematically when you have some of the challenges that we have in a small school. So, what is similar? Most students will end up taking courses that largely will be the same as always. You know, this young man, instead of me taking video game design because it was open 4th hour, he's interested in it. I just took it because it was the hour that I had an opening. As opposed to, you know, I wanted to take anatomy. He's in anatomy and I'm in video game design, and the things are reversed. Because mathematically, if we put all of our students into a 7-period day, there's just a lot of things you don't get. I'd say 50% of the students that take a certain elective who are in woodworking, for instance, are kids that didn't want woodworking. 50% of the people who wanted woodworking didn't get it because it didn't work in the schedule, or some percentage like that. So Jagways is part of the process of us making to match those. Most students will end up taking courses that largely will be the same as always. And finally, most of the courses are the same courses we've always offered. In a way, we're trading ease of scheduling for student interest. So how do we do that? Number one, we want to make sure that we have an idea. Instead of not asking the question, Mr. Reed, you're going to major in agriculture at NDSU, I might want to know that along the way. As we're going to make that decision, I should at least be cognizant that that is something he's interested in. Not asking the question is not good enough. He can take whatever he wants, but at least if he knows that I'm going to NDSU for agriculture econ, oh, animal science. It was ag. I knew it was an ag. See, I had it narrowed down to 25%, so at least we're good there. But having that knowledge ahead of time and having him articulate that gives us some knowledge to help him out. We have kids, and again, I came from a different system, but frequently, we had 30% of our kids who said that their pathway was business. This is in Hutchinson. We would have about half of those kids or more never took a high school business class. Now they're going to St. Thomas, $60,000 a year, and they're going to major in business, and they've never had a business class. That doesn't make sense. So when we ask kids, what are their professions summarized? We have one called the trades, and these are a little bit rough because we haven't had time to really name it something cool like build it or, draw it or something like that. So the things in the trades Jagway: construction, manufacturing, and engineering. Manufacturing, mechatronics, robotics, automation, construction, engineering, natural resources, agriculture, agriscience, farming, renewable energy, automotive, design and drafting, building trades. Does that sound like you? Does that sound like your child? Does that sound like something they'd be interested in? Is that something you'd be willing to risk one of your classes as a freshman to say, I would rather have this based on some pre-designed interest that I have? Second, health and human services, big category, probably 50% of our workforce. Healthcare, medicine, scientific research, dental, physical occupational therapy, PTOT, exercise science, biologist, chemical engineering, nutrition, chiropractic, teaching education, public service, nonprofit operations, legal paralegal, military, child development, social services, counseling, social work, religion, community service, entertainment, humanitarian and philanthropic organizations. That's a lot of stuff. Does that meet your interest? Finally, business, finance, business management, sales, retail management, graphic design, marketing, accounting, culinary art, insurance, entrepreneurship, statistics and analytics, and actuarial science. Again, many of these pathways are cross-sectioned. Mr. Walsh is a math teacher. That's probably more in that construction and trades pathway. He's a teacher, though. It's in the human service. And finally, in the business side, he's also a superintendent, so he's got to know business things. So we can really carry those out. But, at some point, the fact that I had accounting in high school was valuable down the road, is that you understand, credits and debits and ledgers and things like that. At one time, everybody had accounting. Everybody had typing because that's what we had. And so in those areas, we were well prepared. I happened to go to school for engineering, and I had no idea what that was. So that despite being good in accounting and liking math, I chose engineering, which I had no idea what an engineer did. So again, we make wrong decisions for schooling, and we want to eliminate that as best as possible. The whole idea of asking people what they're doing is that we're going to start thinking along the way, we're going to get a little bit more precise. We're going to start off by getting some experience. We're not going to wait till we're seniors to take electives. Ava, you're going to take classes next year. So Jagways options. These are just options. These are just ideas where, you know, Ava wants to be a nurse. So what is one way that she could decide to be a nurse? Well, you get down here and we've got some, you can't see it because it's not big enough, and I can't show it to you. But to be a nurse, you have to do chemistry, you're going to have to do anatomy, you're going to have to do med term. So when am I going to get to those? If she wants to be a nurse, do I want to hold those off till the last possible moment and saying, now we're going to give you a nursing class. Now we're going to let you take a CNA class. No, the day she turns 16, we're going to try to make sure that that person is ready to take a CNA course, because that'd be a great way to find out whether you really like nursing. You know, first aid is very important. Do you like that type of thing? EMT stuff, do you like that type of thing? You know, nursing is kind of a traumatic, you know, very high-speed occupation. Can you handle that? Do you like dealing with people again? Do you like dealing with people in healthcare? So one class from 9th grade on, try to match one class that will help you determine that pathway. The minute that person doesn't like blood, you know, it's like, you know, maybe research is something I want to do. So now they can veer to a different direction. It doesn't mean that the class that they had didn't help them. It helped them not choose nursing as a pathway. So that class, by the way, has some elements present. Number one, it should be rooted in a career interest. It doesn't mean you're going to be a first aid person or you're going to be an EMT. It's to get used to thinking that way, and also to start interacting with people in that business. You really don't want to go to Mr. Walsh and say, what's it like to be a farmer? Well, you know, I know a lot of farmers. I just don't know anything about it. So I would say another element of Jagways is that as soon as kids start making that choice, it also helps us because we can pull in farmers and say, you know, you need to talk with this person when it comes to, you know, ag business. I've said as an example of somebody who's really, really challenged to help kids in a lot of areas, and you think of those people in those health and human service pathways, and I just read 40 occupations, and we hire a 22-year-old teacher who really hasn't done a lot of those things, and they're the person that have to be the go-to, or a counselor who has 160 some different things to, you know, to go through. There's no way we would know all that, you know. So we need to involve our community in these things in a real fashion to help our kids to be connected to the community and to make decisions. What better way than the first aid students to be able to work with the Bruton and Belgrade Fire and Ambulance, for instance? You know, we need to have those things present for us to identify those. So Jagways is just kind of these big picture items in which you can, suggestions in which to go through. So manufacturing, engineering 1. Engineering 1, this is beautiful because we have kids who are going to go to 2-year to Ridgewater for drafting or technical. They don't know it yet, but I'm kind of interested in that thing. They don't necessarily know if they're good in math or not. They might be brilliant and don't know it, or they might think that they're good and they're not. But the skills themselves, that CNC or CAD type of thing that you're learning in 9th grade, that's a skill you own. If you're a plumber, if you're in construction, if you're working out at Buyer Built, you're going to find people that are using CAD. Construction, you want to build houses, you're going to see these drawings. So that minute that you get into engineering 1 as a freshman, you also have a kid that's going to Michigan Tech on a scholarship with a 34 ACT in mathematics. In 9th grade, they are starting in that same thing. They're experiencing things. They're having common things that will help them develop skills and interest. Okay, so you take something like that as a freshman, or automotive, where you do small gas engines. Now that's another thing. Do I know if I'll be a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, a civil engineer, or industrial engineer? Don't know, but it helps to understand engines. You work your way through engineering 2. You're gonna pick up CAD skills. you're going to start working with, actuators and things such as that. You might start working on the robotics at the same time. You might start building a robot, and it's like you have something more advanced. Automotive too. Now you're doing large gas engines, and you're doing, or advanced small gas engines, however you want to term that. You're going to a more specialized skill. Eventually it's like, I don't want to work with engines anymore. I'm done. I did automotive too. Finally, you can start making changes. You can go to engineering 3. You can start saying, I actually want to work on the robots at Buyer Built. I want to take that picker and stacker, and I actually want to know how that thing operates. I want to look at Alec Tech for a mechatronics program because I have skill now. Math is more important to me because I know over at Alec Tech, if I take the mechatronics program, I'm going to need this set of math skills. So we're gradually working our way through. And for those of you who have older kids, I'm on my 5th through high school, it goes really fast. This 9th grade year is already over, really, as far as their choices. They don't have much time. They don't have many slots to make a pick. So these are crucial that you make good picks. I'd say, in addition to that, I want kids. I had a group of 12 8th grade girls the other day. They were asking me about this stuff. And I said, here's the deal. I will know that you are doing this when you guys are asking me, Mr. Walsh, how do I fit everything into my schedule? I have so many things I want to do and get a class in, I just don't have time. And it's like, now we're going to have a discussion because everything's in play at that point. We've got a highly motivated person, and we're going to try to fit all of the things that they want to do. We might have to choose something they don't want to do as much as something as they do. Jagways worksheet. Capstones. So as part of this, that student who got to engineering 3 and motivated and they want to go into mechatronics, they already have probably by the time they get to engineering 3, they've probably had welding 2, they've got a capstone over there. At the same time, they really want to take college algebra and they want to take college pre-calc because they really want to be able to do the mathematics that's required to get through the mechatronics program. Mechatronics program's pretty cool because if you get certain classes in high school and you get maybe 12 to 18 months in college, first-year mechatronics people are hired by 3M for over $60,000. That's really what's in play. When you have skill, there's value. For kids, anything they have skill in, they are maxed with opportunity because there's too many of us, baby boomers, and not enough for them. So all these jobs where baby boomers are retiring from, any kid with skill, any kid who shows up to work, any kid with a personality where they can actually meet people and do that, they're gonna be aces. So what do you want to be proficient with? What do you want to be skilled with? The world needs you to fill jobs. You can do anything you want and you can flourish. So how do you want to cap your high school experience? In math, I could get a capstone there. Medical, I could take any 3 of 5, Gen Chem, Physics, Anatomy. Done. I just got my medical capstone. World language, any world language 3 or higher. Business, taking Microsoft Office 2. Entrepreneurship marketing 2. Accounting 2. Any 2 of those 3 earns a capstone. So instead of just taking this random collection of classes, you have to think about what are you going to get some depth in. Not a lot, but some. You're going to have a focus. You can't just, take it because Will's taking it. I can't just take a class because Joe is taking it. I can't just take a class because I want to have study hall because we get to eat lunch quicker if we do that, which is definitely part of the decision making for a high school student. If I take this, I can have 7th hour study hall, and you know what happens when you have a 7th hour study hall and you're a junior or senior. The school just loses us. We can get out of here. I'm challenging you and I'm challenging kids. I'm challenging everybody and say, it's not about getting out of here. It's about getting in here. We've got all of these classes that kids can take, but we need to be challenged to say, what are you going to take? And we are going to work with them to try to allow this. If you guys can tell, I'm very passionate about this subject. So finally, we have PSEO. That's an option for kids too. I would strongly advise you to have this conversation with your child already, is that state law indicates that any class that we offer concurrently in school is that 9th and 10th graders, if they meet the high school, if they meet the college graduation requirements, so think I've got I'll just say a 80th percentile in math or something like that, and we're going to have a college algebra class, you can take the college classes if they're open. Now, should you? I wouldn't. I don't want to take my freshman year when I'm 14 years old. I don't even want to take it when I'm 15 years old. I wasn't even ready for my freshman year when I was 18 years old. So I want to be good and ready when I do go and I start taking college classes, that I am ready to shine. Because the world is going to reward people with skill and people who know what they're doing and ready to do it. Typically, people are not ready to do that when they're 20 years old even. And if they didn't acquire a whole batch of skills in high school, I would say that their limitations are very obvious. Now, the world's changing very rapidly. Automation, robotics, and I'm not threatening you like a 1960s video either. I'm just saying automation's coming. I think automation is one of the most crucial things that kids can learn before they leave high school, because I don't know where they would get it otherwise. Now, we don't necessarily have a class in that, but we expect to be thinking about this. Which jobs are able to be replaced? You know, we've been replacing jobs at a pretty high rate. When it comes to dairy, people that I grew up with, there was a lot of dairy farmers. About 50% of my class was dairy farmers. I think that number is down to 3 to 5% in Minnesota right now. So we have been replacing these things through various means. Who can see the future? Well, one part of that future is automation and robotics, artificial intelligence, all those things. I want somebody who's thinking about this. I want classes that they're talking about it. I want mathematicians who are calculating with it. I want them solving real world problems, and I want them to be engaged in this process from the time they walk into the high school, and I want to know something about them. If I don't know something about them, our staff, our parents, our community, they need to do that. Part of that through PSEO. PSEO is just in time, right time type of thing. And you know, you're going to say, Mr. Walsh, you know, you don't want kids to go PSEO. Yes, I do. I want them to go PSEO, and I want them to go to college when they are ready. So you need to have a thoughtful discussion about what things you do need to do to get ready. You need to get good grades in the things that you're good at and you want to be good at. And when you're to that point, absolutely. High school is not the place where you get ready for college anymore. High school is the place where you begin college. Most every kid in this room will have college credit when they leave high school. I repeat, most every kid, I would almost expect every kid in this school, when you get into the advanced pathways and the Jagways idea, you will walk away with X number of credits. What do you want them to be in? What skills do you want to be able to put on your resume? PSEO is part of that, but make sure that it's a natural part of your progression and that it fits the future part of your education. I had a girl last year who came in and said, Mr. Walsh, she was a sophomore, she was 15, said, Mr. Walsh, I want to be a veterinarian. I'm going to the University of Wyoming. And I said, well, that's awesome. That makes this easy. And so she came in and I said, well, let's look at the University of Wyoming veterinary program. First thing is you have to have through chemistry and physics in high school. It's kind of like it's like a medical doctor. It's not much different. To be a vet or a doctor, it's almost the same program. Well, she currently was getting a C in sophomore biology. You know, I said, your grades in biology are going to really need to, kick up. You got about 2 different levels to meet that freshman level at the University of Wyoming. Well, I don't like biology. Well, that would be a factor, So the next thing is, well, what are you planning to take next year? Well, I'm going PSEO. So somebody who's not doing well in high school biology is just going to start taking generals and not really discovering what her strengths were in. So I think it's a natural part of the conversation. You need to be aware of it. We want your kid to take PSEO, concurrent classes. We're fully supportive of that, but we also have to think about when you're ready. How much are you ready? Taking one class before you take two. Taking two classes before you take three and being successful in it. So when you're looking at your plans with your child, make sure that you start thinking about when would they be ready for college here. If I'm in the medical area, it's probably after I had high school chemistry, not before. After you've had high school chemistry. This is also online for you. So you have something in front of you, a potential 4-year plan. We're not quite ready to just say that you guys can all do this, but this is what the month of February will be spent with your children, and we're including 9th and 10th grade on it. So when it comes to English, you had English 9 this year. You can pencil in where it says English 9. You don't have to. It's already in there. So for everybody, these are the required. If they're in white, those things aren't going to change at all. And when it says third-year math, you have to have a third-year math option. It can be anywhere from advanced math. It can be pre-calculus. It could be college algebra and stats. So it starts to vary. What's the right one? Not the easiest one. What's the right one? You need to have a third-year science. So it could be physics or chemistry, or it could be everyday physics and chemistry. There's some actual other options if they make the most sense for you. But, you know, for most kids who are going to a 4-year, they should be in general chemistry because they're probably going to have that type of science requirement when they go to a 4-year university. Maybe not otherwise, but for at least half our class should probably be in Gen Chem. Currently that's, I don't know what our number is right now, but pretty close to that. Okay, so, and then the graduation requirements are below there for at least 4 credits of Spanish for your college requirement if you're going at most colleges, not every college anymore. That's changed. At least 2 credits of PE and health. At least 2 fine arts classes, and at least 2 capstones. And then that capstone idea we talked about, are we done? No. We might be done. Is that the last slide? I know, I've just went on and on and on. What questions can I answer? It's got to be one. We'll have a registration link that we will send you when we have everything up. It's been kind of a wild week. So we're just with, but we're very close to having these ready. And then we're going to ask, you know, parents, students, to just do a little bit at a time. So you think about English, you know, what's my path of English? Then take your math, take your Jagways and take your capstones. What things really interest you? What's going to motivate you to, you know, want to get better grades in high school? What's going to connect to a college? And again, for those of you who've been through this, it goes really fast, and I'm not kidding you. It smokes by, and then suddenly, you know, you're talking to your 17-year-old and going, man, we have 8 months left, and we haven't even visited a school. And she has to make her decision in 8 months, so it goes really fast. Be engaged. Talk about these decisions. What classes are you taking, honey? Why are you taking those? Why does that interest you? Did it interest you? That's what Jagways is about. Question? Michael, you got a question, don't you? None? What are your capstones going to be?
Probably music and computer science.
Are you any good in music?
I'd say so.
Yeah, I'd say so. Michael's in the musical, and so, you know, because he has a skill, he's interested in music. And the other one was?
Computer science.
Computer science. Have you had a computer science class? No, not really. That is going to change. So we have to figure out a way where Michael's going to take some class there to determine whether this is really a connection and a conduit to his future. So our conversation there, now I have to remember that. When I look at Michael, it's like I can always come back to that and I can say, hey, what computer class, how's that going? And he goes, I love it, Mr. Walsh. It's like the funnest thing I've ever done in my life. Okay, how about you, Mr. Fisher? Got first place in speech on Saturday?
Well, probably music and computer science as well.
Okay, you two, music and computer science. Have you guys ever been in anything together? Like the musical or anything like that? Oh yeah, that's right, they're in the musical together. So it's not fascinating to figure out why kids are interested in things, is because they show proficiency in them. That's why all of us are interested in things. We have to test people on that proficiency. Okay, I'm gonna pick on somebody else. Oh, there we go. Come on, just give me something. One thing. What are you thinking about? Medical. How old are you? 14. So how will we take that pathway of medical and move it one step forward? You know, first aid, get the CNA class somewhere in your sophomore or junior year. Do you think that'll help her to get interested into the field? Okay, I got to pick on some others. Okay, Cole, I know Cole pretty well, so. Okay, Cole is a senior. Cole, what are you thinking about doing in the future?
Computer science.
Computer science. Have you and I had any discussions about that?
Yes.
Okay, we have. Okay, what he's doing right now is connected. He's doing something over and above and beyond what students do in the school. He's there taping in Bruton, or he'll be taping the girls' basketball game tonight. He's asking me to look at programs. He went over to FAST, and he talked to FAST about employment. Because, you know, if he starts working at FAST in Glenwood, they might be willing to pay some of his education going future and forward. Okay? So all of this is connected. My work as a superintendent, as an educator, is different than it used to be. I'm not here to just push paper. I am here because I am an educator, and every interaction that I have should be about the future. That's how, and he can make me, and he does make me work, by the way. He makes me work for his future, not where I'm just, processing things there. Okay, I need Mr. Cheetah. What are you thinking in terms of a pathway?
Probably computer science.
Computer science. That's really interesting. That about the first 4 people randomly chosen, kind of random, that are around the technology, I suppose not random, but they mentioned computer science. Cole, how many computer science classes have you had in high school? 0. But all 4 of the first people that I asked are thinking about computer science. We have to make sure that we're building these things in. That doesn't mean they haven't done things in computer science. They've done things with robotics, they've done things with maker spaces, they've done a lot of things. They're in a school that is highly tech-oriented. We have one-to-one computing. Computer science, robotics, all these things are part of their future. So it doesn't mean that they haven't had experiences. In fact, the experiences they've had have been so rewarding that they actually want to think about taking courses and to major and to work in that area. So our job is to try to match that environment so the next Cole Campson that comes in here, that we will have more than just extracurriculars for him, but we also will make sure that we find out enough of these kids to make sure that Michael and Ethan are connected by having classes together and finding all those other kids that are interested in and saying, instead of this elective, we probably are going to do computer science that we haven't done. Teacher, we may have to retrain teachers to do something in computer science. Again, we didn't even know that until tonight. Until we ask, we don't know. All right, next question. Mr. Schwinghammer, any questions? How about up there? Ms. Stahlberger, any questions? Yes. Hi. Yep. That part's coming. So, there's a lot of things. So if you go back to that Jagways slide, you don't have it. But we'll send you all this. We'll send you the slide so you can see it. Didn't want to release it too early because then it's what is all this stuff? So there's multiple paths, and you just have to take something as a freshman. So If you're interested in business, maybe Microsoft Office 1 and 2. Maybe as a sophomore, business, and we're gonna lay that out in a way, not telling you what to take, but if I want to work at Palmer Creations someday or something like that, do I need to know web publishing? Do I need to know how to talk to people? Do I need to know something about accounting? Do I need to know something about graphic design? Do I need to know something about entrepreneurship, marketing? Do I have to have those things? Because that's really what I like to do. So depending on what they're interested in, we take a stab and we say, your daughter, what are you interested in? It's easier when you just tell me. Huh? Medical. So once again, if it is medical, then we want to make sure, how are we gonna improve her chances of making a good decision with that? One thing that, because we don't have a lot early for the medical, one thing that I would promote is that I might try to get ahead with some of the things as a sophomore. So I might add chemistry as a sophomore class because I'm really good in science and math, and I really want to get accelerated. I want to have room to take physics, and I want to have room to get some college classes in biology, and I got to have anatomy, biomed, all of the various options. So I want to accelerate in science if I can. So, and we have that on the pathway. When you look at the pathway chart for Jagways, you'll see that. Next question, yep. Like robotics as an example? Very good question. How do we link these activities? I'd probably call them co-curricular activities, like robotics, FFA, various shapes and forms. The one thing is, and because you're relatively new to this process and they're relatively young, at the end of this process, when you gain skill, I'm going to go back to the Welding 3 student. The Welding 3 student who's also had Automotive 2 and has also had 3 terms of engineering. When they go over to Felling somewhere before their junior year or their senior year, their conversation is going to be completely different. Instead of going there at the end of my senior year and saying, I haven't had any of those classes, so I would like a job. Well, we're willing to train you, but right now we're not going to take any apprentices on. When you have the skill, it's a different conversation. In fact, I really want you to work for us. In fact, I will give you a part-time job for the next 2 years, and I would like to pay half of your tuition. So how do we improve what we do? To answer your question, we have to connect that kid to the workforce once they have the appropriate skills and relevance. We're working with, right now, the Youth Skills Training Partnership. We're working with the Youth Apprenticeship program with Lewis Industries over in Paynesville. We're working with New London Spicer in Paynesville on the North Carroll Collaborative for manufacturing. We're trying to actually create an area that we are totally connected with industry. So once I said that when I'm having a conversation with a high school kid, everybody, Doc Gregory or Mr. Wing, it isn't like they're working for us anymore. We're working for them. So as soon as we can identify experience, interest, and skill, we try to connect them. At some point, they need to be in contact with industry because, you know what, I don't know much about much other than education. So it has to be external, and I think you're better off going out there with skill.
Does that start their junior, senior year?
Yes. You got to usually be 16. 16. They're not going to let you even, some of the places won't let you until 18. So again, 17 is a big number. I think when you get close within, with reaching distance of 18, they're willing to take some chances. But some place like Buyer Built might be 16 or 17 where they start taking certain people to do that. I know kids that are working there that are in high school, so I'm assuming that it's 16 for them. Other places might be 18 where they won't let you touch a thing until that age. Lewis Industries right now is interviewing some of our high school students, or very soon, for a 450-hour apprenticeship. And they're looking at their, the pick of the litter, the kids that have the most interest. And naturally, if somebody goes to work and they show up and they do a great job, I think the chances of them getting potential scholarship money are much greater. I'm not spending Lewis Industries money. I'm just saying that I'm guessing that's how it works. Novatech down there, we visited our staff, by the way. Went down and visited Midwest campus. We went to 6 or 7 different places. We went to Dame Steel. We went to Stang Precision. We went to Belgrade Steel Tank. We went to Buyerbuilt. Our staff, elementary teachers, said it was a great day for them. And it's just to simply connect and find out what are the types of occupations and jobs out there, and how can we be connected to them. So to answer your question, long story short, Mandy, I think we're really trying to connect everything to the outside, because the inside is, needs to be connected to the outside, and vice versa. Any other questions? I know you're probably wanting to go to the girls' basketball game, but really, you can tell the truth. That's okay. Very close. I can feel tip-off coming. Questions up there? Mr. Gregory?
Can you explain how they're going to get, where they have like that one elective, how they're going to manage to, with all the required mathematics,
Oh,
to get that
gosh,
one
thank you. Fastball down the middle of the plate, thanks. So what we're doing with a woodworking, so if you can imagine 14 possible slots, 7 in the first term, 7 in the second term. Freshmen might have civics and physical science 3rd and 7th hour. So if it's a welding class, currently, we'll have welding 3rd hour, and any of those 9th graders can't take welding, because 3rd and 7th hour is when we have welding. So what we're doing is we're taking welding 1, 2, and 3, and we're saying anywhere that welding appears, everywhere it appears in the schedule, we're going to take all levels there. Anywhere that woodworking appears, we're going to take all levels there. So it's not like you have to have a woodworking 1, 2, or 3. It's just woodworking. Even Microsoft Office is going to probably work this way to some level. So if we've got 40 kids that sign up for Microsoft Office, it might appear 2 or 3 times in the schedule, and it doesn't matter whether you need 1 or 2 at that point. Wherever it is, you can go in and take that. We're taking our 9th and 10th grade social studies teachers, 10th and 11th grade social studies teachers. They're teaching the same class to all 10th and 11th graders, because they're not sequential classes. So by doing that, we can offer 4 sections of social studies for 10th and 11th graders. And to go back to that 3rd hour welding problem, where I had a class, civics or something that hour, I will have other areas that I maybe had a study hall that I can place that thing in. So because of the flexibility our teachers have shown in art, industrial tech, facts, mathematics, English, social studies, business, across the way, there's all these little elements where I don't know that our 8th graders will ever know what really happened, because for them that's just going to be the way it is. You get the classes you want and you get to pick more. But for somebody like Cole, he'd look at this and say, boy, I didn't have that. And we can't do anything about that, but we can start changing the way that we're doing that. And the only way in a school this size to do that is for people to get really flexible. And that's what I think people are doing. So congratulations to the teachers for making a lot of those changes. It's going to allow us the flexibility that we need. Questions over here? I was yelling out there, so. Yes. Yes, yeah. For them, yeah, that's one thing, and that question's not come up. But our 9th graders took civics, so the civics was, did you just have that 1 term or 2? Was it both? Okay, so that'll be a year of social studies credit for them, yep. They wouldn't necessarily have to take something else. But if they wanted to, they can take more of it. All right, thank you, everybody.
The sheets that you were given, the green one and the white one that the students worked on, we need those back because we're going to be looking at those. The graduation requirements, that you can keep. So if you would put them on the table over there where you picked them up, I'd appreciate that. Oh, and then if you want to look at this again, I believe it is on the website, this presentation. So if you didn't get enough, you can hear it again. Thank you. Did you get that? You'll be able to